Okay, it's Fred Burrow, Swift Plumbers. I'm doing a visual inspection for the customer on a home that they just purchased. Now we're going to start off right here. We don't know if the underground from the meter to the house is copper or not because we don't see it. We know it's copper coming up. A lot of these have been changed. Older sections of Port Charlotte have galvanized pipe underneath them. Newer sections, a lot of them, some of them have copper, which would be bad, just like galvanized. Some of them have PVC, which is better, can get a leak in it. They use bell fittings on them joints. That's our biggest problem with that underground pipe, okay? The water meter has a leak indicator on it. If you ever have a leak, you would know if it's outside or inside by shutting off your main ball valve here, all right? That ball valve would, if the meter's still moving, you know you've got a leak between here and there. We got to come find it and fix it. If it's copper, you're better off replacing it to a piece of PEX is normally the best thing. PEX is the best pipe. You can't have it on the exterior of the home because you can't UV protect it. Now, the reason I mentioned that, copper's no good. You've got soft rolled copper in this house. So what thousands and thousands and thousands of people have had to do in your situation is start over and repipe the house. All right? On average, on a 2-bathroom home, you spend about $6 grand. All right? We don't, there's some lower, we don't even currently do that. We're sticking to our diagnostics and everything. We just understaffed, okay? I just wanted to mention that in the report. So I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm telling you that this is a bad product. I am the leak detector. So people get a pinhole leak or they hear a sound of water running, and guess what? It's a leak somewhere under the slab. I've got to use my equipment, find it, spend $300 to locate, $550 to break a hole. I put a clamp on it, and I tell you, hey, you're right, we're going to start thinking about the repipe before the next one happens, which could happen at any time, okay? So one of the biggest deficits in this home that I tell you is an inferior product was installed under the slab, soft-rolled copper. It's no good. So we start right there knowing that moving forward, that's something that you're going to deal with if you continue to own the home, okay? Now we'll move on to the next. We're on a septic tank here. Now the other thing that I see that's missing on this septic tank that we always want is a clean out. Should be a clean out installed here, okay? We don't see a visual one, but if you look, it should be somewhere just after it exits the home if you do any landscaping or anything out here, okay? But that clean out you're normally going to want to the surface. Why? If the whole house backs up and say it's raining or it's nighttime, there's not much we can do to get you open. We're not going to go to your roof at that time. We don't want to pull the toilet to run a cable through it because we're going to make a mess in that house, okay, and we don't want to clean it. so a clean out is something that's pretty vital to this. The inspection you probably pre-bought, they usually will inspect that tank for you, and you have to do it periodically here in Charlotte County.
We have the paperwork.
Okay.
It was within 10 years.
Okay.
Whatever that was. Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing I tell you about that. That's more of a septic professional, okay? But a clean out to surface is something we prefer here. The age of your home is approximately
1987.
87. So we should be PVC below ground instead of cast iron. Now, the only way to inspect, so we likely are pretty good drain-wise below ground. The one way to know about that is to put a video camera into the drain line should we have issues or whatnot. If you were in galvanized, that would be, or not galvanized, cast iron. It's cast and galvi on the branch lines, but mostly cast iron in the older homes, okay? So we should be okay there. We've got the good news is we have that main shutoff, which is important. That's how you can get all the water off to your house, okay? I want to go over to the water heater now.
It's in the garage over here. I forget your first name.
Fred.
Fred.
Yes, sir.
Right through this door here.
Okay. Now we're going to go over here.
Let me get a light on for you.
This is usually where I run into a lot of issues with how people installed it, okay? So here's our codes with a water heater. Number one, that's an old water heater. Looks quite old. Some of these you can see in the serial number. Nowadays, on water heaters, they don't last very long. I'm going to tell you a few things that they did wrong to not put this thing into code. Number one, cut the damn electrical whip down. I mean, come on. That's just sloppy work, okay? At least we got a ball valve up here, all right? Now, the TMP is going down and not into the wall. That's a code violation if it goes in. This is supposed to go down like this. A lot of them are on the top, okay? The next thing is your breaker box in here.
No, it's on the outside.
Okay,
right there,
so another mistake that they made here is there's supposed to be a switch right there. You're supposed to have a switch for that. Now, insurance company's not going to catch all this important stuff, because they're just looking for something that looks bad. Okay, but I'm going to catch it. Now, here's the thing that's a really dumb one. When the water heater is on the same level as the house, all right, you don't want it to flood the inside of the home, right?
Right.
So you have a pan underneath it, and in this instance, it could be routed outside, or it could just be routed down to this lower section right here.
Okay.
And that would make it so if it leaks out the bottom, it doesn't help a lot with the split, but if it leaks out the bottom, as many of them do, it goes out. That's a code thing, and it's a very good code, because what we're trying to protect here is this flooring.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's on the same level as the water heater. So if the water heater was down here, it doesn't require a pan. It being up there, it's a requirement to code that it has a pan, and just a smart thing to do overall. But unfortunately, with the age of the water heater, the problem you have with putting a pan on it now is you drain that thing, you move it, it's just like putting a new water heater in, right?
Right.
So you're at a dilemma to do all that work with an older unit or spend $990 on a new Bradford White. I can just rattle off prices that,
Okay.
but as far as that, now the only other thing that I can see on this that may be needed is there is no thermal expansion device here. If you have a backflow in the yard, which I looked at your meter, you don't have one. So if there's not a blow-off valve on this house, a blow-off valve, not this is a TMP temperature, okay? Then also to code, this should have had a thermal expansion tank, which is how the dumb plumbers do it, okay? Because you got all that weight and it gets waterlogged, or you can put in a thermal expansion device that looks just like your TMP, and then it gets routed down to the bottom or to the pan like that. So that's the water heater issues that I can see that you have or will deal with soon. Now, right here, somebody's modified this, put in some quarter-turn valves. So at least these are quarter-turn valves at this point. So this has been changed. And anytime we look at valves, we would prefer them be quarter-turn valves. Whether they're hose bibs outside, which you'll have out there, and you can look at anything that you have. This is not the 50s. We don't need wind and grind valves anymore. They're quarter-turn, easy like a light switch, on and off. And that's what you have here, okay? See that?
Yeah.
So that's what we want with the valves. Let's go look under here. All right. Now, generally,
You don't mind if I put my flashlight
no,
on?
put that flashlight on. Now, I'll show you a few things I don't like, right? So, down here, this right here, this should have been longer.
Okay.
This flange tailpiece. Number two, the person who installed it don't know what they're doing, right? Because they put Teflon tape up here.
Okay.
This is not sealed by the threads, or it's not supposed to be. This is sealed by the washer. That's a flat washer that sits on the top of this. And when they installed this pipework, they should have installed it with this going down. We don't need that slope into it because we don't want this to pop off. So that's not good. The rest of this looks in good condition. It's PVC. That one's a better basket strainer than that one because that one's plastic. But I like long shank basket strainers because these nuts always seem to have trouble eventually leaking or loosening up. You can see that rubber's a little crooked, but I'm getting picky. Your dishwasher line is supposed to be reverse trapped, right? So it's going up, which is correct. I don't know why they have this going down. But what that happens is if your kitchen sink plugs, the idea is you don't want the water to go backwards and into the dishwasher, all right? So it's usually going up and over, reverse trapped, not this way.
Okay.
So they kind of laid that underneath. Now this right here, it doesn't even look like there's a clamp on this. So if you shot that dishwasher on, see this?
Yeah.
Look, it should have a hose clamp on it securing it. It doesn't.
Okay.
That's no good, all right? Now these valves, see, I'm not gonna get too picky on these valves. Normally I'm gonna tell you, well, you can put in all new quarter-turn valves. The problem that I have with telling you that is I know you've got inferior copper pipes. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the more you mess with these things, the more you're asking for it. Okay. All right, just turn your water off and on. Pinhole leaks happen in these all the time. It's thin, it's soft, it came in a roll. And they rolled it under the slab. Mm-hmm. So if something's not broke, a lot of times I'm like, don't fix it, you know? Shut your main water off, or hope that these, and it stinks to not have the control of that if you have a leak up here, because you have to shut off the water to the whole house. So that is the downside to this, okay? So that's what I want to tell you about all this stuff. These are stainless steel supplies, which are good to use compared to the hard supply lines. So that stuff seems to look good. Faucet up here. Pretty good shape, washerless faucet. Somebody recently did that, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and I got the gap here.
Yeah, because they got some plumber's putty around there. All right, which is what you use, but that's more of a recent situation, okay? So we've seen that. I got you. All right, now we're gonna go in here. So we have a Delta faucet right here. That's just seeds and springs if that ever goes bad. A decent faucet, not a Moen, but it's still washerless. Now down here, we have the issue. When we look down here, we've got these two valves, okay? And then the way they turn, they're hard to get shut off. Now, the problem with that is how that faucet is. See, that's copper going straight out of that faucet. So what we have to do is put adapters on them to use traditional supply lines to hook these two things back up. You can see that's from them compression joints. You can see a little bit of corrosion. Them are just compression valves on that copper. But they can be changed out. Right over here, one more thing. See our pop-up? So that's a plastic one. You see that? The trap looks in good shape. Going into the wall looks good. So not my favorite kind of pop-up, but it doesn't appear to have any leaks at this time, or we would have seen the evidence down here on that.
Are those shut-offs, Fred? Okay.
I think the problem that you have is if insurance is doing an inspection,
Yeah.
I don't know that we will pass, see, and it leaks when we shut it off.
Exactly.
So these probably have to get changed out,
They were the ones I was
kind of
concerned about.
redone. Yeah, it's leaking right now, and if they see that corrosion, I can tell you from people calling us up to do valves, they will have us do valves because of the corrosion from that. Insurance fails them and tells them get new valves put on. So that is something of a failure, okay? Take this off and take a look in here. All right. So you'd prefer to have a fluid master fill valve in here, okay? That would be the better way to go than this Corky thing. Corky flapper is the best one you can get. Chains on these, all right? They need to be a little bit of slack, but not enough to go under. Hate when people install things this way. Whenever you install a chain for a flapper, you take this access off because it'll get tangled up in here and it'll hold the damn flapper up. So you take channel locks and you squeeze this off,
Okay.
so you don't have any extra slack to ever get caught up on. You know, they'll tangle together. All right, that's just. But fluid master fill valves work better than that. This is going to be another multi-turn valve. I prefer this to be a stainless steel, even though that's rubber on the inside of these anyway. At least it's not a hard copper one. Valve's working at this time. Likely these will, if these work and turn on and loosen, remember you tighten this packing nut right here,
Right.
but do it easily.
Okay.
All right, you don't want to mess it up. Let's look at this shower. So we got another Delta. You see the corrosion that we have here in the waste. Okay, so the tricky thing when you're dealing with this is we take a tool to try to get it out. If it's too beat up, then we try to cut it out. At the time, hey, if we screw something up, anything, but obviously the corrosion on there